7:30. I welcome you all to the April 21st Board of Trustees meeting here at Village Hall. It's nice to see such a nice turnout. In accordance with the current executive orders of the governor, the Board of Trustees is permitted to meet in person and to permit public attendance at the meeting, subject to limitations. Board of Trustees is holding this meeting in person, and obviously the public is permitted to attend. As an accommodation to those members of the public who have health and safety concerns related to COVID-19, the public also may hear the meeting on the Village of North Hill's YouTube channel. In accordance with the Open Meetings Law, the public has the right to be heard on agenda items which are public hearings. On all other matters, the public does not have the right to comment on agenda items unless authorized by the rules of the board. Interested members of the public who wish to provide comments on an agenda item or public hearing may do so in person. They call in during the meeting to 516-627-3451 or through the written chat section on the Village YouTube channel. Comments may also be provided via email during the meeting to villageadministrator@villagenorthhills.com. The clerk will now call the roll for the attendance at this meeting by members of the board and relevant village staff.
Mayor Natus.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Scambati.
Present.
Trustee Lentini.
Present.
Trustee Arnold.
Present.
Trustee Cohen.
Present.
Building Inspector Cinquamani.
Present.
Village Attorney Levin.
Present.
Thank you, Mayor.
Quorum of the board is in attendance, and we can begin the business of this meeting. So I'm going to ask you all to please rise as Mary Ann Carroll does the pledge of allegiance.
Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm also going to ask all of you to please turn off your phones or put them on silent. Thank you. Our next meeting will be May 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Place or access location will be announced on the village website. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of March 17th? Take them one at a time. March 23rd. April 12th. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as circulated.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, Trustee Cohen makes the motion, Trustee Arnold seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We now have what I would say is the first public hearing in a very long time. And so for those of you who are in attendance, I welcome you. This public hearing is case number 18. 01 BT. It's an amended application. It's an application of the Buffalo Country Day School. And before we begin tonight's public hearing regarding the application by Buffalo Country Day School, the village has a statement to be put on the record to describe briefly the history of this application and to focus on the parts of that application which are open for discussion tonight. The original application has been bifurcated, and so only a portion of the original application is on for discussion tonight. So the board requests that all of those present restrict their comments only to the limited subjects of the present application, which are being heard tonight. In 2018, the Buckley School applied to amend its existing special use permit and site plan, and for zoning variances were required in order to maintain the conversion of a part of a parking area as a basketball court, to maintain a conversion of a parking area to a garden courtyard, to construct a new two-story addition to the existing school building to replace an existing courtyard, to construct a new equipment storage building, to construct a new 265 space parking area with drainage, lighting, and landscaping, construct a new garage, reconfigure existing parking areas and drives, and construct new perimeter fencing. Pursuant to existing village procedures, the Board of Trustees has elected to exercise authority over all aspects of this application. After review of this application under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, also known as SEQA, the Board of Trustees concluded that the project as a whole was likely to have one or more significant adverse environmental impacts. The board directed Buckley to prepare and file a scoping document as the first step in the required SEQA review process, which is normal in such cases. Buckley then requested the village to separate from that application two matters which Buckley contends are immediately necessary and which do not raise environmental concerns, which require a scoping document to be prepared. Buckley asked that the village first consider only those two matters, with full environmental review and study of the other items to follow at some future date. The Board of Trustees considered that request and received advice from its environmental consultants, the village building department, and the village attorney. The board then decided to divide the application as proposed by Buckley and to proceed at this time only with respect to the portions of the application which propose construction of an addition to the existing school building where the present courtyard exists and a fence around the perimeter of the property. All other parts of the application will be heard in the future after proper public notice, if and when Buckley submits its required scoping document. As you will hear this evening, the village requires some additional information and documentation from Buckley regarding the limited proposal being presented tonight. The village also must submit this matter to the Nassau County Planning Commission for its recommendation before the village may vote on this matter. Therefore, the public hearing on the limited application will proceed tonight, but will not conclude tonight. At the conclusion of tonight's proceedings, the hearing will be continued to the board's next regular meeting, which will be May 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Comments may be submitted to the board at tonight's hearing or at the May 19th, 2021 hearing. Whether or not there will be further hearings on the limited application will be determined on May 19th. Please keep in mind that this is a legal proceeding and that the village must follow certain legal requirements and procedures. The order of business at this hearing will be first to hear the presentation by the applicant's team, during and after which board members may ask questions. After completion of the presentation and board questions, the board will hear comments from members of the public. If you wish to speak, please wait until you are recognized by me and then come up to the podium. Please speak clearly into the microphone so that you can be heard and so that the stenographer can accurately transcribe your comments. Please start with your name and address and any relevant group with which you are affiliated. Please address your comments only to the board. If you have questions, please direct them to yours truly, the mayor. And then we'll ask the applicant to respond if appropriate. Hopefully, you can limit your comments to a reasonable period of time. I'm not going to say 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes. But hopefully, you can limit it to a reasonable period of time. Please do not engage in cross debate with the applicant or other members of the public. The purpose of this hearing is for the board to hear your comments, and the board really wants to give everyone a fair chance to be heard. In the interest of saving time, hopefully the comments will not be repetitive of comments made by previous speakers. I don't have a problem if you say, you've heard it before, I represent this group, and frankly, we agree with what was said. But nothing is really gained by having the same comments repeated at length, and it is really sufficient to state that you agree with 1, 2, or 3 of the previous speakers. After the public comment has been heard, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond, and the board will have an opportunity to ask additional questions. The hearing then will be continued to the May 19th, 2021 meeting. Again, I thank you all for coming tonight, and I anticipate and thank you all for your orderly participation in the proceedings. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Bruce W. Ricketts, the law firm Albany, 1050 City, New York. Good evening and welcome to the board.
Mr. Mingus, would you please try to speak? I know it's the mask and I know it's difficult.
You can raise it, yeah, raise the mic.
But if you
Hold
speak a
on.
little bit more directly into the microphone, members of the public in the rear will be able to hear it. I'd appreciate that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted
I
everyone to
understand. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be anywhere these days. It's been a long time. I'll try to keep my comments brief. As the mayor said, this hearing is limited to just two aspects. The proposed addition to the school and the perimeter fencing. The proposed addition to the school will be, if approved, in what is now a courtyard. It is a fill-in construction. The existing school building surrounds on all four in courtyard. The proposal is to fill in that courtyard with an addition that is roughly 28 feet by 77 feet. It will have 3 levels. There will be a cellar. There will be the first floor level and the second floor level. The cellar will have 3 new classrooms. They'll be dedicated for music classes, which presently have to share other classroom space in the school. The second level will have 3 new classrooms. They will be dedicated to language classes. And the main level will have a new dining room. The existing dining room is too small to accommodate all of the students at one time. Some have to eat elsewhere. Furthermore, as was explained at the December 16, 2020 hearing by John Drago, Buckland's Director of Safety and Security, the location of the new dining room will improve the safety of the students. They'll all be eating in the same location. Where it is located, it will prevent someone who enters the school from having a direct line of sight to the dining room. And it will be easier to secure the dining room in the event of emergency. And we know that all schools, houses of worship, are planning for that and have been for quite some time. The proposed addition requires an amendment to existing special use permit, site plan approval, architectural approval, and a height variance. With respect to special use permit, the property is zone R5. Educational uses are a special use in the R5 zone. The school has a special use permit for an educational facility. And this proposed use is consistent with the existing special use permit for an educational facility. As stated in the technical memorandum, July 2nd, 2020, prepared and submitted by Cameron Engineering, the applicant's consultants. There will be no increase in water demand and no additional generation of liquid waste. As a result of this addition, it will be servicing the existing students and faculty. And as stated in the parking demand study prepared by Cameron Engineering, the addition will not generate additional traffic. Because, like I said, it is for the existing staff and the existing students. The height variance is required. The permitted height in the R5 zone is 25 feet. The existing building that surrounds proposed addition is prior non-conforming and has a height of 38 feet. The proposed addition will be 30 feet 7 inches. So it will not project higher, it will be a little lower than the existing building that surrounds it, which would prevent anybody other than a drone or a helicopter from even seeing this building from the outside. You know, from ground level, you're not going to know that that courtyard was ever filled in. The original disapproval notice also cited a variance for setback. The existing building has a prior non-conforming setback of 63 feet, 63.25 feet. That's prior non-conforming. However, the memorandum of the building superintendent just recently, April 2nd, 2021, states that since the addition is set back more than 75 feet, the variance would not be required for that. We are not increasing the non-conformity. It is inside the existing building and set back more than 75 feet. The addition of this building does increase the floor area, and it changes the floor area ratio. Permitted floor area ratio is 3.5%. In 2009, the last time this was before you, other than this present application, and the special use permit was granted for additions to the school campus at that time. A variance for floor area ratio was granted. The existing floor area ratio is 10.6% by variance. Now, since 2009, the school acquired additional property, so they have additional area. It's computed when you figure the floor area ratio. The school addition has a floor area of 4,584 square feet. But the lot has increased in size, and so with the proposed addition, the floor area ratio is 7.49%. So it's actually less than what has been approved and what still is approved for the school. So we're actually increasing the floor area ratio by acquiring additional property. The other aspect is the construction of a new perimeter fence. There is a haphazard fence in some locations of the school perimeter. The low fence, broken in many places, missing in other places. As explained by John Drago, the Buckley's Director of Safety and Security at the December 16, 2020 hearing, a new higher perimeter fence around the school was recommended by the Nassau County Police Department and the United States Homeland Security in their survey of the school. Along Iron Willis Road, Buckley is proposing an estate-style fence that is quite common in this village. It is a iron fence in between pillars that will go along Iron Willis Road, similar to what is in some of the other estates and other condominium complexes in the village. Now, the original plan before this board had 31 pillars, 8 feet high. There are too many pillars, and why must they be 3 feet square all around? The plan before you now reduces the pillars from 31 to 16. And these are just on Iron Willis Road, and a pillar inside the entrance to Iron Willis Road, from Iron Willis Road. The width of the pillar has been reduced to 2 feet, with the exception of the base of the pillar, which is 2 feet, 6 inches. So the bulk appearance of those pillars has been greatly reduced. In the plans, there is a schematic of the proposed fence, and that, in preparing for this hearing, we realized that schematic was actually taken from some prior design concept. And that schematic shows a pillar height of 9 feet 2 inches and a fence of 7 feet. That's not what we are proposing. And we will submit a revised plan showing that we are sticking with the 8-foot high pillars with a 6-foot high fence in between those pillars. With the exception of Iron Willis Road, the remaining perimeter fence is a 4.5 foot high aluminum fence, black fence, that will go around the remainder of the school for security purposes. The code only allows 4 feet. This is only 4.5 feet higher. I mean, it's only 6 inches higher, half foot higher, 4 feet 6 inches. So the fence does require a special use permit. All fences require a special use permit in this village. And a height variance for the aluminum fence of 4 feet 6, and a height variance for the state fence along Iron Willis Road. That is our presentation, Mayor, members of the board. Are there any questions at this time?
Dennis Schematic, Deputy Mayor of the Village of North Hills. Your presentation was very clear, but I'd like to have some information if you can supply myself and the mayor and the trustees. The footprint of the building that's going to be in the courtyard is going to be 28 by 77.
Approximately.
That's fine. And the height of the structure is going to be 30 some odd feet. Now, the first question I have is what type of roof is the structure going to have? Because you mentioned that no one will ever be able to see the building.
I believe it's a flat roof, but the architect is here.
It's going to be a slate roof.
Your name and address.
My name is Frank Petruso. The address is 107 Nolan Boulevard, Great Neck, New York. So the roof is going to match the existing, and I believe we're doing slate.
Is it going to be a flat roof?
There's portions of the roof that is flat, but then we have like a mansard roof that will look, so when you look at the building, you really like to see the flat portions, it's like a mansard roof, so we'll have a slope effect to it.
So it's not necessarily correct that Mr. Biggs told us that we won't see the building. We will see the building if it's going to have a mansard.
At some point, you will see the building, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
You'll see the mansard part of it, but not the flat roof. You will see the roof.
Yeah, you'll see the roof.
Can you bring up the elevation? Yeah.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
No, that's fine. I just want to bring that out just for my information and for the mayor and the trustees and for the residents who are here tonight.
There it is. So basically,
You want this or the elevation?
that's the roof plan, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's basically a flat roof.
Excuse me, good. When you say this, that, we have no idea what
Can
you're
I
talking about.
point to it?
No, just please identify what that is. and then
That's
describe it.
All right. What you're looking at is the roof plan. So the dark hatching all the way around, that's the slope part, that's the mansard roof. So when you're looking at the building from, let's say, sidewalk level or ground level, you'll see a sloped roof. We're not gonna see a flat roof per se.
Should I continue the elevation?
Yes, that's right. So there you have it. So, this is what you see when you're on the ground level.
Yeah, please describe what you're looking
You're looking at an elevation of the second floor portion of the building. You see the two peaks, the gable ends, that's where the classrooms are gonna be. You have brick to match the existing, and the roof that will also match the existing.
for.
So that roof is higher than the roof on?
No, it's actually, it's lower.
Lower than the existing building?
Yes, it is.
So you won't see it over the other building?
You will see.
You will see, you
I'm
will
saying
see that
it's
portion.
lower.
And just to clarify, the plans you're talking about are part of the application.
Correct.
So you're saying it's not lower than the other building, it's higher?
No, it's lower, it's definitely lower. It's at 30 foot 7 inches, and what's the main building?
The average is 32.25.
Oh, yeah, it's 30 feet, 7 inches. So how many you would see that from the street?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the next question that I have, again, is just for information purposes. You mentioned that the building, the structure will have 3 floors, basement, second level, main level. So, and you mentioned that on the basement, there's going to be 3 classrooms, and they're going to be musical classrooms. Currently, where are the musical classrooms now?
They share other classroom space, they don't have a dedicated classroom.
Okay, and the second level, you mentioned, you passed along to us that there's going to be 3 classrooms there, and there's going to be language classrooms. Where are those classrooms?
Let me check for you, I don't want to speak.
Sure. Thank you.
Same, they, right now they share other classroom space, so now we'll have their own dedicated classroom.
And the last question that I have before I give it back to the mayor is the main level you mentioned that there's going to be a new dining room. The dining room now that exists, is that able to, is that sufficient for the students that are in the school now? None, okay. Okay, thank you.
How many students are in the school now?
350.
What is the present dining room capacity?
Thank you, I want to answer questions? Give me your name and address.
Chamar, J-E-N-M-A-R-C, Juhl, 2 Bayou Willis Road, and the headmaster of Public Intermediate School. So we have 350 students and 75 employees also at the school. We have we can fit about 120 students currently in one seating in the dining room.
So you have staggered seating for dining?
Yes, we have 2 seatings, yeah.
But Dr. Duarte, while you're up, may I ask you, is there any plan to increase enrollment?
Currently, no. Thank you.
May I add no other questions?
I'd just like to have
Excuse me,
you
I have
answer.
another question. Sure, I love you, Dr. Shuak. If you have, you said you have 2 seatings, you have 350 students, is that what you said?
Yes,
So, and then you said that the dining room is 100, capacity of 120.
yeah.
Okay, so if you have 2 seatings, that's only 240. What happens to the other?
Some students are dismissed at noon, but they don't eat lunch at school.
How many students are dismissed at noon?
They're about 35.
35.
We have also other spaces that we use for lunch. That's where we would be overflow. We'd like to consolidate lunch in one location.
And presently, I have another question. So you indicated that space is shared for the music
Yes.
group. Are there, when they share, there are separate classes, aren't there? In other words, when the music is there, the math class is not there.
That's correct.
And at other times in the other space, you said some of the other space was shared. So you're saying now, with this application, the music area will be dedicated and other areas are now going to be dedicated?
That's correct.
Okay. And I have a question for you, Mr. Miggett. You said that the fence would be going around the school. To use your words, around the school. Now, do you mean around the entire property or just around the school?
Of the entire school property.
Okay, so it's the entire perimeter property,
Yes,
not just around the school building.
correct.
I wanted that clarified. You have a question?
You said the fence was 4 feet 6 inches, backing up the conduct.
Yes,
I think we have a limit in the village of 4 feet.
that's why we're seeking a variance.
But on the states too, they wanted 5 feet and we limited them to 4 feet. So is there a reason 4 feet 6 inches?
You can only ask questions. You know, that's why it needs a variance,
Oh, okay.
because it's in excess of what the
It's in excess
village
of the
code
limit.
allows.
Okay. Thank you.
But trustee Lockett, everybody like to have a fence as high as possible, right? So, you know, we thought going a little bit higher, 4 feet 6 inches is not unreasonable. You know, if you would want to have a 5 foot, 8 foot fence for security, but, you know, we thought another 6 inches is a reasonable request.
Mr. Miggins, and I know it's not this application, but I heard you say that this building addition will not generate additional traffic. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes,
So this addition will not generate additional traffic,
correct.
and you expect that there will be no increase in registration.
Now, as a result of this, correct.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. How many parking spaces exist right now on the property?
There is, the approved plan from 209 has 120 parking spaces. But some of them are no longer there, although they are on the official approved plan. There are 105 parking spaces,
Existing.
yes. And people park on the grass. That is the reason why we are seeking to enlarge our parking lot.
Well, that's not this application.
It's not.
No, the reason I ask is,
Yes, yes, but we're talking about parking,
You're talking about parking for this application, which only involves the school.
correct.
And the addition.
You're not increasing, the parking demand of this application.
well, inherently you are. By increasing the amount of classrooms, that has a direct correlation to required parking in village code. That's why I asked how many parking spaces exist, so that we can know if you're going to be seeking a variance for that at this time as well.
Jack, just to clarify something, I think, because we're using different terms.
Sure.
For what are actually different things. The parking demand, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the parking demand that you're talking about that will not increase, is you're claiming that the addition to the school building is not going to require additional parking because of the increased usage or the increased number of people.
That's correct.
But under the village code, it may require, under the parking formula, it may require some increased spaces, but that's not demand, that's code.
That's correct.
All right, and Mr. Cinquemani is talking about code.
I'm talking about code, correct?
Thank you.
So based on our code, you would have insufficient parking with the increased square footage, is that correct?
Well, if you look at, I mean, as of now, the official approved plan is 120 parking spaces. Right? The addition requires by code 10 more parking spaces, which brings it up to 116. So if you're going by the approved plan, we meet the parking requirement for this addition.
The issue is that those spaces no longer exist.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
They were an approved plan.
I think you said 120 plus 16. Did you say
no,
100?
no, right now, on the approved plan for existing building, 106 parking spaces are required, 120 were on the approved plan. The addition requires 10 more spaces, that's 116 parking spaces required. But the approved plan still shows 120 spaces. That is the approved plan as of now.
So why are they parking on the grass?
The parking on grass for many reasons, but I thought we're not going to talk about this tonight.
No, but we're talking about the existing building being expanded, and therefore the code requires additional parking. And right now, you're telling me you don't have enough parking. That's why I'm asking the question.
But,
So there's a bit of an inconsistency in my small mind.
but by code, it's 120.
116.
As a practical matter, the demand is more than what the code says, which is not uncommon. Well, you know, if you go to the Miracle Mile Shopping Center, that parking meets code. You go there on holiday shopping, you can't find a place to park. So same thing here with the school, when they have,
Americana is, excuse me, I don't want to make a comparison to the Americana Shopping Center. This is a residential community, and you have a special use permit. So I want to limit your application to your special use.
Mayor, I'm trying to answer your question, say why are they parking on the grass?
I can't compare a school to a shopping center. I want to limit it to the school.
The analogy was that zoning codes, whether they be for schools, shopping center, office building, are based upon a theoretical mathematical number that 9 out of 10 times is not sufficient for peak demands at these various facilities. And it's not sufficient for the school. When they have a soccer match, they have a tournament, they have parent teacher night, they need more parking than what the code says they need.
So
But you said that this addition will not generate additional traffic. So then I want a clarity there. Will it generate additional traffic?
No, we're not changing.
How about peak season? How about peak time? You
No.
just made an analogy. So they'll never need additional parking.
Not as a result, you're not going to increase any demand for parking because you're not increasing the students or the faculty.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify what my question was and why I was asking it. The prior application, the full application showed that there were changes to the existing site as it was approved that needed to be maintained. And those changes included reduction of parking from the approved plan. The approved plan showed 120 spaces. I asked how many parking spaces existed. We were told 105 existing spaces. The application that they're putting forth now to add to the school building will increase the parking demand from the 106, excuse me, not demand, but village required parking from 106 to 116, meaning that as it stands right now, they would be deficient 11 parking spaces, which would require a variance based on the application as it stands in front of us right now.
And we have applied for parking variance in the application before.
If I may, I think the purpose of this hearing in part tonight is to get the information that Mr. Tinkelmani has just summarized. He has to review the code and determine if there's any variance needed, and then we'll have to determine if the application perfectly includes that variance. I suspect that Mr. Miggins is correct that it does. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. We were trying to get the information. I think we have it. How many are on the approved plan? How many are actually there? And how many additional spaces would be required under the code formula based on the additions in the building that's proposed? So we'll have to make a determination through the building department as to how that impacts any relief that the applicant may need.
Peter, are we saying that there's 120 approved spots now on the plan?
Right, the plan that was approved in 2009 showed 120 parking spaces. And then through various things that were done, the basketball court conversion of some of the parking spaces, they've reduced that now to 105. At that time, they only needed 106 spaces. The addition of the school brings that up to 116, required by code.
Is it 120 or 129?
120.
I thought I heard 129.
No, sorry.
I may have missed it.
That's, the mask makes it.
I think the memo says 106.
106 was what they had previously were required. They, Mr. Miggett said that they currently have 105, correct?
Yes, and that includes the parking that was approved where the basketball hoops are now.
105?
So instead of the parking, instead of retaining it as parking, what we did was we converted, applying converted parking spaces to basketball.
No, it's still used as parking spaces, except when they're playing the basketball.
Oh, okay.
I have a question. It's from Mr. Singalani. Where will these additional parking spaces be built?
No, we're not, there's no additional parking spaces being proposed on this. It's just that the code requires parking spaces based on every 15 occupants in a classroom setting. Based on New York State code, how we figured out occupancy, it comes out to they would need 10 more spaces than what was prior.
Will they show us where that would happen? Would it happen where the existing parking is now?
Well, that's what they would have to seek a variance for, because they don't have the 116 spaces.
Correct. We're not proposing to add parking at this time.
No, but I know, but I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but it sounds,
Not part of this application.
okay, all right, and I'm not gonna ask the question.
So, yes, to the extent we need a parking variance for this addition by code, we are seeking that. And the basis for that is we're not adding more students to more faculty.
No additional students, no additional traffic.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Any other questions from the?
And I have one that's a little unrelated to this, just for information. Mr. Miggins, can you give us an estimate from the time, if you're successful with this application and you get the building permit for the addition to the building, how long from that permit issuance will it take for you to construct the building?
Well, we like to start as soon as possible. How long will it take? Let me refer to the architect.
8 months to a year.
Thank you.
And the construction, will the students be in attendance during construction?
I would think so, Dr. Joel? Yes.
Any other questions? Are you finished with your presentation?
I'd like to have the architect explain, because he has me confused. This room, if this building is lower than what is there,
If you're confused, if you're
Let me explain. Basically, if you're on IOU's world, you will see the addition, the second story addition. In front of that is a one-story portion, which is higher, the addition will be higher. And beyond that is a two-story portion, where the main building is higher than the addition. So if you go back to the elevation, you'll see that. All right, so you see where it says partial south elevation, and the portion that's just white, that's the one-story portion.
Yeah, try to zoom in.
So if you're, let's say, up against the building, you're not gonna see that two-story portion, it's set way back. You'd have to be on Argue Wilkes Road to see the two-story new addition. But then beyond that is the original building, which is higher, 38 feet or so, 38, and the new extension is 30 foot 7 inches.
So from the condominium in the rear, what would they be looking at?
They would be looking at the existing building. They won't see this, they won't see
They
this.
will see it.
They'll see the machine home.
And from what direction will you see?
From the,
The Meyer
South.
Wilkes Road.
south, Argue Wilkes Road.
From the south looking north?
Correct.
Yeah, so if you're driving along Meyer Wilkes Road, or you're along Meyer Wilkes Road, you would see the building and the additional height of that building from Meyer Wilkes Road.
Right, but mind you, it's set way back from the one-story portion. And it doesn't go above the main part of the building. And it's a beautiful addition, you know.
Well, it's in the courtyard. It's in the
Not see it
existing
from the
courtyard.
condominium.
No, no, not at all, no.
You won't see it from the condominium, we'll see it if you live east.
I can hear you.
If you live east of the building, you'll see it, right? You'd be sure.
Maybe a glimpse of it, maybe a couple houses might see it.
Yeah.
And how much would they see? How much height over what they would see now would they see?
It would blend in with the existing building that's beyond it. It's not gonna look any different, to be honest.
What's the height?
7 feet, 38 to 31, actually less than 7. Big change.
The entire, question, the entire building with this, dam side is going to be 30 foot,
7 inches.
7 inches.
And that's to the flat part.
What about the top of the display?
The top display is 30 foot 7.
Okay,
All right, so below that, I don't have a height, but it's probably 10 feet low. So it's 20 foot change.
So if you're in the links, would you see the top of the roof?
I don't know what the links is.
The links is south.
It's south of Meyer Wilkes Road.
You might, yes, you
So
might.
in the condos, you will see the roof.
Yes.
Okay, as long as we know it's from the condos, we'll see it.
I'd just like to clarify this from either one of these points. What you presently see is, the first part of the building you see is lower than the part you see further away. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so what's the height of the part you see for the lowest part that you see in front?
Could be like 12, 15 feet.
Okay, and then the highest part you see now in the rear is what?
38 feet.
All right, and this infill
Yes.
is going to be in between those two,
Correct.
and the maximum height?
30 feet.
I'm sorry?
30 feet.
Okay.
Oh, we can see.
Any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to present before I open it to anybody who wants to be heard?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone here in the audience that wishes to be heard in connection with this application? Please stand and identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Dutch. I reside at 49 Chestnut Hill. I'm president of Condo One at Acorn Pond and a board member on the Acorn Ponds Homeowners Association. And I'm representing the over 600 residents that reside in our 381 homes. Tonight, as in both January and February 2020, you have the opportunity to hear from residents of our community who continue to have a series of concerns regarding the proposed Buckley Country Day School expansion. We continue to have concerns about the overall scope of this project and its potential effect on our quality of life. If you recall, when pressed at a public hearing last year, Buckley attorney Bruce Miggins, who previously repeatedly stated that Buckley had no intention to increase the enrollment, stated in anger when pressed that Buckley could increase enrollment to over 900 students, and I quote his comment, "You," meaning Acorn Ponds, "can't do anything about it. We were here first." The residents of Acorn Ponds have not forgotten that comment, and therefore continue to mistrust Buckley as a neighbor and their honesty in what they plan for our property, for their property. Tonight, we are hearing about plans regarding the perimeter fence. While this might seem a simple enhancement, we have concerns. How much of an easement is there currently between the two properties? How close to our property line will the fence be constructed? Will the same design of fence be required for the entire circumference of the property? Will there be a berm built or shrubbery planted on the Buckley side of the property to shield the view of the playfields and school buildings from our residents as there is now? How many trees will be removed? Will an equal or greater number be planted as replacements? We do not have confidence in Buckley to act in good faith. They've proven that already. My fellow residents tonight will also speak as representatives of our community and as individual residents of North Hills about Buckley as a neighbor and continued concerns about drainage. Remember, over 600 residents of Acorn Ponds will continue to hope you advocate for the residents of Acorn Ponds, the largest and most populated condominium in the village of North Hills. We realize that Buckley has a right to expand, but with that expansion, you must ensure that there be no negative impact on our community, our property values, and our quality of life. Finally, we request the village officials continue to be prudent in their discussions and decisions being made regarding this project. Study it carefully, because Buckley has proven to truly be a neighbor that can't be trusted. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Everybody speak together?
Well, we both have different things.
I'm Peter Zuckerman, I live at 30 IU Village Road.
And I'm Emily Crown, he's wife, and I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak one at a time, so.
I'm Emily Crown, and I'm his wife, and we live at 30 IU together. And our concern is also to that of the perimeter fence. I've only seen, and we've only seen the plans that were supplied in 2019, I think. And it was a little unclear to us exactly where the fence was as it relates to our property, like the scale of where it was, what would happen to the woods in between the two properties. We talked about a detail which we're now hearing is 8-foot wrought iron fence, but not really a wrought iron fence. We're hearing that there's a 4.5-foot aluminum slat fence. From the original fence that we saw in 2019, it looked like the wrought iron fence abutted our property, and then at a certain point, my neighbor behind, you start seeing a black aluminum fence, which, you know, I'm not for the fence at all. And I don't really understand homeland security and the police with that private road. Nothing happens down there. And I don't even see it as a safety issue. I would love to hear them tell me over the last 25 years how many safety or problems happen when you leave fence. But that being said, I don't think the fence comports with the aesthetic of the village of North Hills, and I have concerns about it. I don't really understand. We don't really understand. We can't see it on the plan what it will do. The lawyer said that it's 4.5 foot flat. We saw part of the fence being wrought iron 8-foot. I hear that they're, you know, decreasing the pillars and all this other stuff, but we're not clear, you know, what it is and how it's going to affect our property and our neighbors as well. I mean, we're definitely not for a 4.5 foot black aluminum slatted fence. I mean, who would want that on their property? But the other piece was in the detail from 2019, it looked like there was a gate that could be entered to and from our property. There seemed to be an opening, and it looks like it's gonna be on our property, but it'd be, egress, so they can come into our property, which we're completely against.
Yes, I just want to know, is this fence going along our property line? Is it
We're
parallel
on
to our property
797.
line? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't see, the lot number for, property.
797.
Ours is 797. What's the closest lot number? What's the?
How do you feel about the lot on property? Now we're not sure yet.
I can figure it out.
The perimeter, they're speaking about perimeter fence would be the entire outer perimeter of their property. So if their property adjoins your property,
Yes,
I would suspect that the perimeter fence would be on the property line.
is it gonna be an 8-foot wrought iron fence with a gate into our property? Is it gonna be a 4.5-foot flat, aluminum block slatted fence? I mean, we don't know. And we're not
I'm
being
more
told.
concerned about the gate. Why does the gate have to be along our property line? So we're gonna have to step into our property to get out.
That would be trespassing.
Well, the detail from 2019 shows that there is a gate that is potentially on our property.
I'll have a building department take a look at the perimeter fence and see if there is an opening on your property.
Right. But also concerned about the 4.5-foot aluminum slatted fence.
We're not gonna let them address the comment. If they let them address the comment. I didn't know that they can address the comment. Well, I mean, they have it up.
Is there a gate?
There's no gate. Not shown.
I'm asking the applicant, apparently, is there a gate opening onto their property?
This is your property here, correct?
797.
797, map shows it here.
That's what the applicant has.
Sure.
Well, there's no gate. What they're looking at is the dotted line of the property boundary, which maybe they call the gate. There's no gate.
In the gate detail, it shows, in the fence detail, it shows the gate. That's on site from 2019.
There will not be a gate.
Okay. Anybody else? Please step up, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Harry Orenstein. I live at 31 Oldfield at Acorn Pond. I'm a member of both the Board of Managers of Acorn Pond Condo 2, as well as the Acorn Pond HOA Board of Managers. Excuse me. I've spoken before this board twice before regarding the project to expand the Buckley School, specifically as it relates to drainage issues. Though the current application consists of a subset of tasks for the entire project, I believe that these items and other planned items have the potential to significantly affect drainage on the property. The first item I would like to discuss is the construction of the 2-story school building addition. Since according to the submitted plans, this structure will be surrounded by existing structures, it is unlikely that it alone will significantly impact drainage on the site. However, plans for the entire site that have been submitted previously indicate that expanded paved parking as well as other tasks will be addressed at a later date. I would urge the board to keep in mind this addition and subsequent phases of this project are submitted so that the cumulative effects on drainage can be considered. The second item I would like to bring to your attention is the construction of the perimeter fence. Again, according to the submitted plans, this fence will surround the property, and the part abutting Acorn Pond is the area I'm most concerned about. Although there doesn't appear to be a specific number on the plan, it seems that this fence will be very close to the property line between the Buckley School and Acorn Pond. To my knowledge, in order to construct the fence, it will be necessary to clear vegetation that may be in the way so that there is sufficient space to place the fence and fence posts to which it is attached. The plans also indicate the area surrounding the fence will be grass and not any significant plantings. Any reduction in trees and shrubbery would likely have an impact on water flowing onto the Acorn Ponds property. This is especially true since the style of fence detailed in the plans does not appear to do anything to impede that flow. Both of the issues I discussed will contribute to the additive effects on drainage, as items in all the phases of the expansion project are completed. The fact that this project is broken into discrete pieces should not distract from the fact that the end product, whatever it may eventually be, should be considered as a whole, especially as it relates to drainage on and from the property. I thank the board for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. That's what happened.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. I am hopeful that you remember me. My name is Maureen DeCava. I live at 20 Fox Ridge in Acorn Ponds. And I am one of the delegation of homeowners from Acorn Ponds who came to the meeting in January 2020 to express our concerns about the Buckley expansion. I presented a photo expose to explain why we believe at that time that Buckley was a bad neighbor. I called it Buckley's dirty little secret. And I think that by the end of my presentation, you understood why. In fact, Mr. Miggets, Buckley's counsel, expressed his shock and approbation at what he saw and suggested that you perhaps impose fines for the violations that were pictured, but that you nonetheless approve his client's requests for variance. To Buckley's credit, after that meeting, he cleaned up the area and in relatively short order removed all 7 pods, the construction material and building debris from the long forgotten projects, the discarded bricks, blocks, sand, gravel, wire mesh, rope, hoses, tarpaulins, electrical wiring, and old fencing that was literally rotting on the hill above our home. Buckley removed the go-karts, the gasoline containers, and the oil cans that had been left in the open in an unsupervised area of their school, and other assorted shelving of various types and sizes, metal containers, plastic storage bins, plastic bags that were haphazardly strewn about. There were gasps from the audience, and perhaps even from among you, when my photographs depicting the electrical extension cords that had been strung together over a distance of about 30 yards from the goalpost on the athletic field across dried grass and brush to terminate inside the pod closest to Acorn Ponds. We had no idea what was being powered inside that pod, but the condition was certainly a fire hazard and undoubtedly a violation of building code. I remember feeling good when Buckley cleaned up, but unfortunately, my good feelings were short-lived. Over this past winter, I noticed that electrical wires were once again connected to Buckley's goalpost from the scoreboard across the ground and into some sort of electrical power box or generator. I later discovered that instead of truly cleaning up the dirty little secret on the side of the property nearest me, the mess had merely found a new home. Over on the other side of the soccer field and behind the sheds and the pool, among old broken tree limbs and other gardening debris are strewn old boats, landscaping equipment, tarpaulins, discarded sports equipment, garbage bins, traffic cones, tables, artwork, and assorted other refuse. But what I discovered that is more disturbing than the new junk heap is the agglomeration, the snake pit of wires and generators, fans, air conditioning units, and other electrical equipment that is laying on the ground to the east of the large white tent that Buckley erected for outdoor schooling last fall, over a half year ago. This hodgepodge of tangled wires and cords are plugged into each other and wrapped around each other and knotted through each other and strung across fencing, and in one case, over fencing and into a pool area, in order to connect to outlets, which to my untrained eye appear to be overtaxed, handling more wires than they were designed to accommodate. I'm not saying that it has been like this since last September, but it is like that now. I am not an electrician, nor do I pretend to understand what is and is not code. But this disorganized mass of entangled wires cannot be safe, not for the students and staff, and not for Acorn Ponders. Apart from the fact that Buckley is once again building a junk heap within view of our community, and apart from the dangers that the snake pit of wires and electrical conduits and equipment may pose to our community, here is our concern. Buckley has asked you to bifurcate the project that it initially proposed. Now it asks for only 2 portions of the original plan. Sounds reasonable. And perhaps you are thinking that too. The construction part of the interim proposal is an interior courtyard. Why would our community oppose that? Well, when it was first promoted last year, Mr. Migatz told us about the recommendations of the Nassau County Police and Homeland Security, and said that it was important to establish an interior dining room so that students would be more secure. But the new dining room will be on the first floor, right in the center of the building, right next to the area that the dining room currently exists. And what Buckley proposes to construct around the dining room are new classrooms. In the year of COVID, when enrollment is down in so many private schools, Buckley wants more classrooms. We are concerned that when the issue of parking is finally on the agenda, Buckley will insist that additional parking is required to support their new classroom space, and that you may be constrained to accommodate Buckley's requests. Tonight, you have considered the question of the 106 or 116 parking spaces that would be required. And Buckley's council has assured you that they have no intention of increasing enrollment for staff today. What will Buckley do in 2022? What will Buckley do in 2025? In 2027? And what assurance do Acorn Ponders have that Buckley will do clean and neat construction? If we review the history, we can expect that the back perimeter of the property along our border and where their public doesn't go will be the new dumping ground for construction debris. With all due respect to the board, we have suffered the effects of Buckley's neglect and malfeasance, and the village has not protected us. It is community policing that has generated results, and that is why Buckley wants its fence, to keep out prying eyes. This is not for security reasons. None of the public schools that service North Hills have perimeter fences, nor do any of the private schools. The Waldorf School in Garden City, no perimeter fence. The Greenvale School, the Schechter School in Williston Park, Portland in Locust Valley, check it out. No perimeter fencing. At the very least, if Buckley is permitted to erect a perimeter fence, we submit that the village must undertake to regularly inspect the grounds to ensure not only construction to code, but proper cleanup. That its debris does not become landfill. In fact, we respectfully request that you conduct your first inspection tomorrow morning, before Buckley has a chance to cover up its new dirt little Finally, and most significantly, residents of Acorn Ponds have expressed their concerns regarding drainage and water runoff. There is no question but that the construction of the perimeter fence will require Buckley to remove trees and shrubs along our entire border. And it's a significant distance. It's impossible to read the linear footage on their diagrams, and it can't be read on the screen either. But it's over 1,000 feet, significantly more than 1,000 feet. Nowhere does the interim proposal address the environmental impact of that activity. For each linear foot of fence, how much space needs to be cleared in order to install it? Is it 3 feet, 5 feet? The workers need room in order to get the fence installed in the ground. Multiply that width by the distance across our entire boundary, and we're talking about an enormous clearing. These trees and shrubs anchor the soil and absorb water, and when they are removed, they must be replaced in order just to maintain the status quo. Mayor, you talked tonight about the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, which requires you to assess environmental impact before approving discretionary actions. Considering the potentially significant adverse environmental impact, I submit that until Buckley provides an impact statement relative to the issue regarding this fence, the proposal is premature and your consideration should be postponed. Indeed, the bifurcation of Buckley's expansion project, while a cunning way to accomplish through the back door what Buckley should not be permitted to achieve through the main entrance, must be considered in light of what it does and does not do for the community at large. It does not answer the question, why? Why does Buckley need so many new classrooms if it does not plan to expand enrollment? Why does Buckley need a perimeter fence when no other school in the area requires this? Why has Buckley refused or neglected to consider the environmental impact of the removal of the thousands of square feet of trees and shrubs relative to drainage issues that already exist along its borders with Acorn Ponds? Because Buckley is a bad neighbor and has not considered the ramifications to the community of North Hills and more particularly the Acorn Ponds. We depend on you to do so. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard in connection with this application?
Mayor, I have a comment on YouTube and I had an email, so I have two questions. This question was posed by Camille D, and she is asking, why is a 4.5-foot fence needed? And then I have an email from resident Ivan and Lori Klugman. As a resident of Acorn Ponds, I highly oppose any changes to the Buckley School property. Any fence, decorative or not, will give the appearance of a secure institution/prison. This will have great adverse effect on property values of the entire village. Thank you.
And the first one was a question, why?
Yes, why, that was posed by Camille D on YouTube. Why do you require a 4.5-foot fence? That's her question.
That's the question. Especially around the entire perimeter, where you're going to be, I guess their concern from the village residents' point of view is the ecology and the number of trees and foliage, because if you're going to do it on the perimeter line, It's the property line so that you're not going to be out of possession of any part of it. So I assume you're going all the way on the property line. Is that correct, Mr. Higgins?
That is correct.
Okay, so therefore, the question is, why do you need perimeter fencing when it will destroy all of the trees?
So, first of all, there's an assumption that it destroys all of the trees. You have an environmental company, we did file a short form GAF, and they will conduct a review of that. Tree fences typically go through trees or around trees, and if a tree has to be taken down, a permit would have to be obtained from the village. And I'm sure the village would require, as a condition of that permit, that that tree be replaced.
We don't know. But that's
The question of it would help if the residents understood what the law is and you know, what this board can and cannot do when it comes to educational.
Mr. Higgins, do me a favor. Please, do me a personal favor, okay? I don't want you to tell my residents that they don't necessarily understand the law. If you're a lawyer, then you understand the law. They understand what it is to be in a residential community, and they understand also that you have a special use permit, okay? So you're only there by virtue of a special use in a residential district. You're in an R5. You don't have the right to expand without all of the board's authority. So I don't want you to educate the residents, they live there. Do me that favor, okay? So just restrict yourself to the application at hand.
But it is part of the application, Mayor.
What is part of the application, the fence?
Because the Court of Appeals has said, and I discussed this with your counsel, and he did not disagree with me that.
Look, Mr. Higgins, we're not in the court of law. If you take an article, if we reject your application and you bring on an Article 78, then you can fight with Mr. Levin or whatever law firm represents the village at that time. I don't want to hear the Court of Appeals case. We make a decision based on our responsibility to the community and to our residents.
And your responsibility is to follow the law as well, Mayor.
I do understand that, and when the time comes, we'll have to do what we have to do, and you will have to do what you have to do. And I don't want to become argumentative, but don't threaten me.
I'm not threatening you, but.
Yes, you did. You said, I have to follow the law, as if we don't.
But you don't want me to explain to the residents that there's certain limitations on what the board can and cannot do, which would make things go a lot smoother.
No, I don't want you to explain it. My own counsel will explain it. I don't need you to explain how our counsel can explain to us. We'll go into executive session and we'll hear what our limitations are, if any.
But it would be helpful if you explain that to the residents so they also understand. That's all I'm saying.
They're looking to us to protect them. They're not looking to you to protect them.
I'm not saying that. I'm not afraid to say that.
Anyone else?
Wait, did he answer the
Mayor,
question?
I don't have a question about the application, but I'm concerned about the client lady that told us.
Right, it was a condition, so I'm gonna have Mr. Chico go there first thing in the morning.
Yeah, are we allowed to address that with either Dr. Joel or?
No, there was a request that the village make an inspection, and I will direct Mr. Chipomani to go there tomorrow to the area in question.
That's
Because the last time we had this, they cleaned it up. Now, I didn't know that they moved. So they moved it to the location, issued the violation. Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Miggets, if you could just answer the question that was posed online. It was, why is there a need for a 4.5-foot fence rather than the 4-foot fence?
Well, I'm not allowed to quote the law, so I won't. They would like a high fence as possible. If the village wants only a 4-foot fence, the village has the right to do that. They would like a higher fence. They're asking for 4'6". It's certainly, the village is certainly saying no to that and deny a height variance, but we still ask you for a special use permit for a fence.
Why do you need a perimeter fence around the entire site?
Mr. Mayor, you can't question the need of an educational institution when they say, we want to put a fence, we want to put a classroom. You cannot question their need for that. You cannot second guess their need. They are an educational institution. You can put reasonable limits on a special use permit to mitigate against potential impacts of these proposals. But you have no authority to question the need of an educational institution when they come before you.
With regard to their educational needs or regards to other needs?
With regards to the expansion of their facilities for educational purposes.
And that's a famous Court of Appeal case that we're going to refresh our recollection. Is that correct?
Well, I assume your counsel told you that. I want to have explained to the residents so they understand the limitations.
That's not, I don't think it's your purview to explain to our residents. Anybody else? Any other questions? Elliot, yes.
I think last year when Mrs. Donato, that's the last name, I'm sorry, she mentioned that wires and gas cans and everything, we discussed.
I'm sorry, can you look this up and talk?
No, when we discussed it last year, when we heard about that mess with the wires and everything, if that's really come back and been moved somewhere else, I can't tell you how upset we are. And also, if most schools don't have a perimeter fence, how come they need one?
We're told that the Court of Appeal says we can't question the need of an educational facility. So I'm not questioning.
I'm not a lawyer.
We don't have to agree to give it to them.
Yeah,
We don't have to. We can't ask them why they need it. We can deny the application or not, or grant the application. We'll take it up in executive session. Anybody else want to be heard? Before we go on with the regular, so we can continue with our regular meeting. Good.
I think we made it clear that we want the fence for increased security. That's why we want the fence.
Nobody can climb over. You're saying security so that no one can climb over a 4-foot fence rather than go through a jungle or a lot of trees.
It was recommended
I understand. I heard.
by police department and Homeland Security, and John Grego, public safety director, explained that whatever slows down from the bad guys, he said, no, it's not going to stop everybody, but if it slows it down, it improves security. That's why they want it.
And coming through Acorn Ponds onto your property wouldn't slow them down. Is that what you're saying? You need a fence to protect and to eliminate all that foliage. And that's safer for your students, for your client students, than what's there now. That's what you're telling us.
That's why Nassau County Police Department Homeland Security is telling us yes.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. If no one else wants to be heard in connection with this hearing, we'll continue it to the May 19th.
Need a motion and a vote to do that, please?
I will make that motion. I said, if no one else wants to be heard, then I'll make the motion that we continue this to the May 19th.
I'll second the motion, the made motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Peter, hold it tomorrow.
Cool.
Find out
Let me
exactly
just
where
show
it
you. Yeah, I see. I don't, this is their, this is their plan. Okay, so now, over here is where they have the pools and the sheds, right in this area.
Right.
And over here is where they have the
field?
no, the field is actually all of this, okay?
Right, okay, so you're talking about like, that's where the
So
basketball.
here's where the
court is,
tent, and the tent is right behind it, right behind the basketball court. And all the wires, it's just incredible if you look at that.
right? Okay,
The wires are all over here. And then if you just continue back next to the pool,
Treasurer's report.
and between the pool and the sheds, you'll
Interest
see where all the
checking.
junk is now.
I'll go there tomorrow.
$7,204,121.44. Repair reserve fund, $727,877.54. Park and recreation, $1,015,524.37. Capital reserve, village hall, $257,773.96. Special escrow, $93,965.94. Community amenities, $37,183,430.85.
Any questions in connection with the treasurer's report? I'll entertain a motion that we accept the treasurer's report.
I make that motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, trustee Cohen makes the motion, trustee Arnold seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any questions in connection with the transfer appropriations? Contingency, 5,000 to street lighting and 2,500 from contingency into the state on car insurance. That's based on an increased rate which came through, and so we have to pay the state some additional unemployment. Based on increased rate. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget transfers.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Lantini makes the motion.
I second that motion.
Trustee Arnold seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The next item on the agenda, the payment of claims. The question will be brought to 104/21. I don't know.
No.
I'll entertain a motion that we approve the warrant 04/21.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Lantini makes the motion, is there a second?
I'll second trustee Lantini's motion.
Deputy Mayor Scambati seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item on the agenda, the board discussion, village election this year. And the election inspectors, Mary Lou Carroll, have been able to arrange for election inspectors.
Yes, I have, and it's indicated in the memo.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
No, I have a question, Marion. Hearing, we were allowed to have, people that are not residents be inspectors?
Yes, we are. There were, one of the residents who we used last year, the requirement from Nassau County is that they are trained election inspectors on the machines. You cannot use anyone in your village election who is not trained on the election machines.
Thank you.
Okay, then, let's change the resolution, appointing the inspectors of election.
I'll make the motion, to, appoint the inspectors that were given to us by, our village administrator.
So it is pursuant to the resolution that was circulated to the members of the board.
Yes.
Trustee, Deputy Mayor makes a motion, trustee Cohen seconds, all in favor?
Mayor, before you take the vote, I just want to make sure, we should not have anyone who's running, move or second that motion.
They were, that is fine. It was Deputy Mayor Scambati and Trustee Cohen who are not up for election.
Either one is up for election.
You want to make sure. We have to take the vote then.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next item, Nassau County Shared Services Agreement for LED street lights. There's a memo dated March 26th. from Mary Ann O'Carroll. And she asked us to consider this matter at the April 21st Board of Trustees meeting. If we're interested in pursuing the LED streetlight conversion, the county has asked that we sign the tax authorization to proceed. I don't know how the board feels about this.
Mayor, I think that our village administrator spent time in researching it, and if it's her recommendation, I think that we should move towards what she's asking yourself and the board of trustees.
I don't have a problem with it. This would come out of the community amendment fund because and certainly we have the money to do
It's
it.
for the good of
And it'll increase security within the village because the lighting is much brighter and much better.
Right.
Okay,
I have a question for Mary, our village administrator. Is that correct, that there's going to be a $19,000 monies to Nassau County?
Well, they're not, right now, they were not sure. This is, what they gave me is the maximum out of pocket because they're getting villages together to participate in this. There will be rebate money available. I've been told that there may be no net cost to the village. It just depends on how many people are involved. But right now, the maximum out of pocket, that's what they came with, the $45,539, based on the information prepared by Nassau County. This, again, is part of the Nassau County Shared Services Initiative.
If I may, your last comment was something I was going to bring to the board's attention on the use of the community amenities fund. If the board wishes, you could include in your approval of this, assuming you're going to approve it, that whatever the cost to the village is, that it come out of the community amenities fund.
yeah.
I just also wanted to point out that there was a street light that was down on the service road to the LIE. And our vendor has told us that unfortunately it's becoming more difficult to get the regular streetlights that are not LED. So it took almost 3 months for the light to come in because of the limited inventory on non-LED lights. That's just something to consider.
Can I make a motion to approve the LED streetlights? Oh, I'm sorry.
You want a second?
Yes, I can.
Deputy Mayor Scambati made the motion. Trustee Arnold seconds. And the addition to the motion is that the funds come from the community amendment fund. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mary Ann, thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
Thanks. The next item on the agenda is the new legislation that was passed by the state, the New York State cannabis legislation. I would like to leave that for executive session because there are some issues. And I think it would best be taken up in executive session. So I'm going to skip that for now and go right to the Lower King Park item. Deputy Mayor Scambati.
I do, I have an update report. Mayor, board trustees, residents, Harry, I'd like to say I'm extremely happy tonight to have a great park committee consisting of trustee Cohen, trustee Lentini, along with Mary Ann Carroll and Peter Singamani. It's been a long time coming, but we're at the end of the trail. We started in 2018. And it's now 2021. We finally have a bidder that the committee would like to recommend to the Board of Trustees. The bidder is Play Sites Plus Services Incorporated. Their price is $322,200. We have 19 prospective bidders. 12 of those bidders gave no response. 7 bidders gave pricing. Mr. Singamani discussed with Tom Levin how we proceed, and Mr. Levin told Mr. Singamani that we should use the 3 lowest bidders. the three lowest bidders that are best in qualifying. And it turns out that the low bidder,
I have to interrupt. Number one, that's not what I said. And number two, my discussion with Mr. Campbell is a privileged communication. Should not be discussed in public.
the committee was told that we should review three of the lowest bidders. And it was decided on that the best and qualified was the second lowest bidder, 322,200. And they are play sites plus Surfaces Incorporated. So that's the recommendation of the park committee. I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to
Let the contract.
give out the contract to Playside Plus Services Incorporated for $322,200.
Mayor, we have prepared a proposed motion for the board. The deputy mayor's motion is different. Which one is being proposed?
Let's take the motion that was circulated to the board.
I've
Seen it, I didn't see it, so.
But there's one item in there that needs some discussion. And that's with regard to the notice to proceed. I don't know if the village wishes to issue the notice to proceed immediately before having the contract signed and the insurance and bonds filed, or whether you wish to defer that. The difference is that the contract has a provision that the work must be completed within a stated number of days. If the notice to proceed is issued by tomorrow, and if the notice to proceed is not issued by tomorrow, the completion date has to be negotiated between the village and the vendor.
Well, then I think we should proceed on an expedited basis. You're anxious to get this done, aren't you, the committee?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, so then we should use the resolution circulated by our village attorney. And that includes.
It includes a direction to issue the notice to proceed tomorrow.
That's the motion.
So the motion is,
Right.
the wording that Tom, that Mr. Lovett gave, to the board.
Correct. That's circulated. That's the deputy mayor's combined with the motion and seconded by trustee. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, thank you.
Thank you all for a good job.
Thank you.
Is there any unfinished business? I have one item of new business before I go into executive session. Under new business, I would like to appoint Eli Zakin to the Architectural Review Board. He has a construction background and is attended as a resident several of the meetings and is very interested in serving on the Architectural Review Board. He's not on any other board here and has expressed an interest, so I'd like to appoint him and ensure.
Very qualified.
And the term, Mayor?
Mary, what is it, 1 year term?
He's an alternate, he'll be an alternate,
Be an alternate.
an alternate to the Architectural Review Board. So he's got to be appointed annually.
And so it's as an alternate, to be clear, I'm appointing him as an alternate to the Architectural Review Board.
You need our approval?
Yes, it's the mayor's appointment subject to board approval.
I'll approve Ellie Zakin, being appointed to the Architectural Review Board by the mayor. Alternate.
Alternate, Mayor, and trustee Lanzini and the deputy mayor have made the motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Okay, the next item is I move that we go into executive session. We will return to public session at the conclusion of
All right, we're back.
We're back in public session. Welcome, everybody.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I need to correct that there. Was your motion and your second?
I did, okay.
Probably on delay, Marion.
Now that we've had, legal advice and executive session, I would like to discuss and eventually make a motion that the village opt out of this cannabis legislation. Pursuant to whatever rules and regulations are set forth in the statutes. I'll fill you in briefly. I'll tell you that the Village Officials Association and most of the executive board were dead set against this legislation. We were able to kill it a year ago or 2 years ago, and it came to a final this year. So most of the villages that I know are opting out. Some of you have read in the paper, Freeport is opting out, it's Mayor Kennedy, Lindborough is opting out, Graham Murray. Garden City, there's so much, I don't know how many villages that Tom represents have already decided to opt out. My recommendation is that we opt out. I think the issue is really a moral issue in my mind, not a money issue. And morally, I don't want to preach, but I certainly don't want kids being able to buy or smoke marijuana within the village of Northville. I think it's a social moral issue. And I think it was a big mistake on the part of the state, just like it was a big mistake when they legislated bail reform. It's now every time somebody breaks in, they walk away and they come back the next week and do it again. So I think it's important that we take a stand and opt out. That's up to you, you're the board.
Well, there's something, Mayor, to some degree, we started this a while back when we discovered the people in the fall were drinking beer, they were drinking booze, they were smoking marijuana, they were finding beer bottles and liquor bottles and marijuana cigarettes had smoked in the fall, and we decided that we weren't going to have that anymore. And I agree with what your thoughts are.
Wait, number one, that's not related to the opt-out. Where's moving the law? That's a separate issue. The opt-out is opting out of the licensing of dispensaries or consumption premises in the village. And you're not deciding now whether to opt out, you're deciding whether to have a hearing on a local law. You don't decide it before you have the hearing.
I guess I agree to have a hearing also.
We can't elect to opt out.
You have to have a public hearing without the local law to opt out.
Okay.
So the decision is whether to have that, proceed with the local law, and if you don't want to do that, when would you like to have that hearing? Can I make one comment on that before you answer my question? I have no idea, you may have a better sense of this. If you think that if you choose to opt out, it's going to become an issue in the village, and there are significant numbers of people who would object to that, you should consider when you want to move forward with it, because it will become an issue in the village.
I don't believe it's going to be an issue, but I listen to your, certainly at least the potential. And if the village election is in June, what you're saying is that we have a public hearing before June. First of all, I think we're going to be very busy with Buckley.
Yeah, well, what I'm suggesting is if you think it's an issue or are concerned about it, don't vote until the June meeting to have a hearing in July. Otherwise, what you're gonna have to do it next month.
Why
don't we wait till the June meeting?
The only advice that I'd like Tom to give us is, where would they put these dispensaries? Where would they put these?
You can have it in a dealer track building, you can have it in the.
Any
They're not
building
going
or
across the street.
any building that's zoned for commercial use, you can have that community drive.
Oh, they can just open up, sure, unless you opt out, you know, right, they open up.
Theoretically, yes. Practically, I don't know if they would do that, but theoretically, yes, they could go with any office.
But then again, the landlord, they would have.
Dennis, we're talking about a guy who, they said we're gonna go in and open up a dispensary. Okay? And the landlord says, I don't want you to, or he says, oh, yeah, for 5,000 a month, I'll let you do it. So, I'd like
And
to.
the last thing also is that you can't back out of this. The law the state adopted also legally expanded the medical marijuana.
Right.
So there are going to be a lot more medical marijuana dispensaries than there are right now. Well, you can have those as well, but you cannot opt out of those.
Certainly, I think it's
And you
something
can't-
we
cannot-
would like to think about before we make a rash judgment. I think you have to think about it from a medical point of view, from a religious point of view, from a social point of view, and we'll discuss it again, but before you look into it, I think you'll find that the other villages are right on track with my recommendation.
But they have a lot more, commercial property.
I know, but the bottom line is, whether they have the commercial property or not, they want to opt out no matter what it happens.
So there's a big rush, some villages want to be right up front, and they want to do this right away, and they're in a big rush. Well, some of what I represent are interested that they've already passed the village election this year, so not an election issue.
Yeah, March.
Right, so, I mean, you could do that, but you have until December 31st to adopt this law.
Mayor.
And it's not gonna affect anything until sometime late in 2022. So it's not urgent, it's just something to think
Yeah,
about.
I agree with what Tom is saying, that we have to present everything. That's great. So, but before I want to pass on to everyone here, is we have a small village. So you say, Dennis, somebody could open up a spot in Gillitrap. Well, right down the block is Marcus Avenue that has a gazillion store. You know, so they'll open up a dispensary there as opposed to.
Unless the town opts out. The town has the right to opt out for
And the
any
county
areas
has
outside village.
I already, the county
So that's
also was opposed to this.
Dennis makes a good point. If they opt out, they can buy it on Willis Avenue.
So, but then it's not our
No, I'm
responsibility.
just saying, no.
At least we do something for our residents to say, hey, we don't want
I agree with
we
you.
don't want it happening here with our kids.
I agree with you.
But they won't smoke it properly.
So then, do you think maybe it is beneficial to do it, when we have our
Well,
election?
that's gonna be, well, if you voted to do it very quickly,
No.
so that you got your law adopted before June 1st, you could have it on your ballot in June. That's the only way it'll get on the June ballot.
But we don't want it on the ballot in June.
I don't think it makes sense to do that.
No,
It's separate.
we don't want
I
it.
had enough threats when they said we have 600 residents in Acorn Pines.
You have enough going in June. We don't want it in June.
No.
You know, they
We
keep
have enough
telling us
with the
to have
600 people.
residents that vote. I hear them. It happens, I hear them, but I'm very upset with the Buckley application. That's my opinion, not everybody's opinion. But I don't like to be threatened either by the 600, and I don't have to be lectured by Mr. Means. I told him I use my own counsel.
So what I'm hearing from you is that maybe you should, your June meeting is after the June election.
Right.
Right.
So at the June meeting, you could have a discussion of scheduling a hearing for July.
Correct.
Later, on that one.
There's no rush.
There's no rush, you got plenty of time.
All right, so you keep that in mind.
Just keep in mind, you're out there, you're
Allowing
allowed.
that?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in the calendar.
And there's no publicity about it, really.
Well, there's going to be, because other municipalities.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, so, yeah.
We're out of executive session.
In the newspaper, yeah.
Yeah. So the village opting out applies only within the village.
Right.
The town can opt out, but it applies only in the parts of the town outside villages. The villages get to make their own choice. So if the town opts out and a village in the town doesn't, the village can have licensed dispensaries and consumption.
The county may also allow
The county, no, the county, under this law, the way they
County can't.
is the flip of the law they originally proposed.
Right.
Counties can't.
So the county's in, but so far Hempstead and Oyster Bay have said they're gonna opt out, and North Hempstead has not said.
Right. Hempstead, yeah. And Hempstead and kind of West Bay are really up now.
Yeah.
I don't know why Jimmy Bosworth maybe pushes up to now for the election and when he thinks it's gonna be running, but maybe, but they do all out there. But they have fun too, they have.
Well, see, no, but their situation, their timing is a little different, because their election is in November.
Right.
So if they, in the normal course of things, they were to adopt this law now, they might, if they chose to have a referendum or had a petition, they might have to have it before the November election, which means they'd have to have a special election in the town. I don't think they want to do that. I don't know if they want to put it on the same ballot in November or not, or if they want to have a possibility of one after, but that's their decision to make.
Anybody else, anything?
Can I say something about the perimeter fence again? I lived in condo three, and if you walk the property, there aren't really that many trees there now. So if you take down trees, it's gonna be a bit.
So in that particular area, will let them stay in?
There are very few trees there now.
Well, if our council says that if they want to bring fences all the way out to the perimeter, we can direct them to replace it with 500 trees and a buffer, and he tells us we can do that, even though we can't prevent the fence.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
we have restrictions.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can't put baby trees in there.
Phyllis, it's not happening until it happens, please. Of course, we direct what they have to put in. If you want a 12-foot tree, you tell them you have to put in a 12-foot tree. You want 15-foot, you tell them I want a 15-foot tree.
We're still live on YouTube, just so you know, we're still live on YouTube.
What?
It's a public meeting. you're
Public
allowed-
meeting, we're live on YouTube.
Yeah, that's why I want to go on record saying that there's not too many trees there. I know.
Let's go.
See where we go. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So
Make that
moved.
motion.
I'll second the motion. Trustee Cole makes the motion.
Sorry, we hear.
Everybody second, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, dear.
Okay.